Imagine holding in your hand a coin that represents not only a small piece of American currency, but also a window into the history of the United States. During one of its most turbulent decades, the Jefferson Nickel, minted in 1968, is more than just a 5-cent piece. It is a reflection of American culture, politics, economics, and artistry from the time of its creation to the modern era. And when we talk about the 1968 Jefferson Nickel, we step into a fascinating story that ties together the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, the craftsmanship of Felix Schlag, who designed the coin in the late 1930s, and the broader events of the late 1960s that shaped America in ways that are still felt today. The year 1968 was a year of transformation and turmoil in the United States. The country was dealing with the aftermath of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. The Vietnam War was raging. Protests were erupting across college campuses, and American society was grappling with questions of civil rights, democracy, and its place in the world. In this charged atmosphere, the Mint continued its responsibility of producing coinage for everyday commerce, and among the most familiar pieces struck during that year was the Jefferson Nickel, first introduced in 1938 as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel. The Jefferson Nickel was designed by German-born sculptor Felix Schlag, who won a national competition to design the coin in 1938. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson III, President of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence, and a central figure in American democracy. The reverse features his famous Virginia estate Monticello, which Jefferson himself designed and which stands as a symbol of his intellect and his contradictions, as both an advocate for liberty and a man who owned enslaved people by 1968. Schlag's design had been circulating for 3 decades, and the coin had become a trusted staple in American pockets, purses, and cash registers. Now, what makes the 1968 Jefferson Nickel particularly interesting is not just the design itself, but the context of minting in that specific year. Prior to 1968, all proof coins had been struck. In Philadelphia, however, beginning in 1968, proof production was moved permanently to the San Francisco Mint. This marked a turning point in the history of American coinage. The 1968 proof, Jefferson Nickels, struck at San Francisco with the S mint mark, became the very first modern proof coins to carry that designation. Collectors instantly recognized these pieces as significant because they marked the revival of proof coinage after a 3-year hiatus between 1965 and 1967. During that suspension, proof and uncirculated mint sets were replaced with so-called special mint sets, which did not achieve the same level of mirror-like finish and sharp detail that collectors loved. The return of proof coins in 1968, with the Jefferson Nickel leading the way, restored a sense of artistry and tradition to American numismatics. The circulation strikes of the 1968 nickel also have a story of their own. The coins were minted at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Unlike Philadelphia nickels of earlier years, which carried no mint mark, the 1968 issues introduced a permanent change. All mint marks now appeared on the obverse of the coin, just below Jefferson's portrait on the right side near the rim. This was a significant modification, because for decades the placement of mint marks had been a subject of debate, and in 1965 the Mint had even removed mint marks entirely to discourage coin hoarding during a nationwide shortage. When the mint marks returned in 1968, their new position on the obverse signaled both a design shift and a renewed sense of transparency for collectors and the general public. In terms of mintage, the 1968 nickels struck at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco circulated widely and were used in everyday commerce across the country. These were not rare in general circulation, but certain varieties and conditions became valuable over time. For example, proof strikes from San Francisco that were particularly well preserved or featured deep cameo contrasts between frosted devices and mirrored fields grew in demand among collectors. Similarly, circulation strikes with full steps on the Monticello reverse, a grading designation that refers to sharp and complete detail in the depiction of the steps became especially sought after since most coins did not strike with that level of clarity due to the mint's high-speed production. Understanding the historical role of the 1968 nickel also requires a look at how coinage fit into the broader economic situation of the late 1960s. Inflation was beginning to take hold, and the United States was still adjusting to the removal of silver from its coinage earlier in the decade, while nickels never contained silver except for the wartime alloy years. Between 1942 and 1945, when nickel was needed for the war effort, the public had grown accustomed to seeing design and compositional changes across coin denominations. The Jefferson nickel stood as one of the few coins whose design and metallic composition remained unchanged during this time. Its stability provided a kind of continuity amidst economic uncertainty. Collectors often point out that the 1968 Jefferson nickel is a coin of transitions. It represents the transition from Philadelphia to San Francisco. For proof strikes the transition of mint mark placement to the obverse, the transition back to proof production after the special mint set years, and the broader transition of America itself through a decade of upheaval and change. While a single 5-cent piece may seem insignificant, it reflects the story of a nation striving to balance tradition with change and stability with innovation. To truly appreciate the 1968 Jefferson nickel, you have to think about the layers of meaning it carries at the surface. It is simply a common coin struck in the millions and used in daily transactions at gas stations, diners, and grocery stores. But for numismatists, it is an artifact of design, history, monetary policy, and cultural symbolism. The details of its production, the choices made by the mint, and the reception by collectors all combine to give this coin a depth that extends far beyond its face value. By the time you finish studying the history of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, you realize that no coin exists in isolation. Every detail, from the placement of a mint mark to the shine of a proof finish, tells a story about the people who made it, the time in which it was struck, and the values that shaped the nation. And that is why, when you hold a 1968 nickel in your hand, you are not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a chapter in American history. Imagine holding in your hand a simple 5-cent piece minted in 1974, a coin that millions of people passed through their daily lives never realizing the fascinating history, the artistry, the economic background, and the small but meaningful changes that made this Jefferson nickel not just money, but a part of American culture and heritage. Welcome to the story of the 1974 Jefferson nickel, a coin that continues the proud legacy of American numismatics and reflects the journey of a nation through its economy, politics, and artistry. To understand the Jefferson nickel of 1974, we must first step back and remember why the Jefferson nickel series was introduced in the first place. In 1938, the United States Mint replaced the Buffalo nickel with a new design honoring Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, and one of the most influential figures in American history. The decision came after a design competition in which Felix Schlag, a German-born American sculptor, submitted. The winning entry, Schlag's design, featured a left-facing portrait of Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia estate, on the reverse, and this design would endure with minor modifications for decades. By the time we reach 1974, the Jefferson nickel had been in circulation for 36 years, and the coin continued to be an essential part of daily commerce. It was struck at 3 different mints: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. The Philadelphia and Denver facilities produced the regular circulation strikes, while San Francisco issued proof coins for collectors. The 1974 nickel had a mintage running into the hundreds of millions, making it widely available across the country. But even within this enormous production, there are subtleties, differences, and interesting details that make the coin worthy of a deeper look. The obverse design of the 1974 nickel continues to display the portrait of Jefferson, though over the decades the detail of Schlag's original artistry had worn down through repeated die use and slight modifications, Jefferson's features appear bold yet softened compared to earlier strikes. The inscriptions include, "In God, we trust," to the left of the portrait Liberty, with the date 1974 to the right, and the mint mark, if present, just to the right of Jefferson's ponytail. The placement of the mint mark in 1974 is a notable detail, because beginning in 1968, the mint mark was moved to the obverse side beneath. The date before that, it had traditionally appeared on the reverse. The reverse of the 1974 nickel still depicts Monticello Jefferson's iconic home in Charlottesville, Virginia. The design shows the neoclassical architecture with its columned front. And central dome beneath the building is the word Monticello, followed by the denomination 5 cents, and the country name United States of America. Above the image is the motto E pluribus unum. The design, though simple, carries a stately appearance and has remained a recognizable symbol of American coinage for generations. From a technical perspective, the 1974 Jefferson Nickel was struck in a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This metallic makeup had been used since the end of World War II, when the special wartime alloy of silver, manganese, and copper was discontinued. The return to the copper-nickel blend made the coin durable with a silver-like appearance that has allowed nickels to stand. The test of time in circulation. The weight of the coin remained at 5 grams with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters and a plain edge, all of which has been consistent throughout most of the Jefferson Nickel series. In terms of mintages, the 1974 Philadelphia nickel saw a production of hundreds of millions, while the Denver Mint also struck large numbers, making the coin widely accessible. The San Francisco Mint created proof coins of the highest quality using specially prepared dies and planchets to produce mirror-like fields and frosted devices. These proof coins were intended for collectors and not for general circulation, making them desirable pieces today. The 1970s were an important period for American coinage, and the 1974 nickel must be seen. Within this context, the country was experiencing economic challenges, inflationary pressures, and changes in daily life. The use of coinage remained central to commerce, vending machines, transit fares, and countless small transactions. The nickel especially played a vital role since it bridged the gap between the penny and higher denominations in daily trade. From a collector's perspective, the 1974 Jefferson Nickel might appear common at first glance because of its large mintages. However, condition rarity plays a huge role. Coins that survive in uncirculated grades, particularly those with sharp strikes and attractive luster, are always of interest. Proof versions, especially deep cameo examples from San Francisco, are considered premium by collectors. Another fascinating aspect lies in error coins of 1974. As with any large-scale production, mint errors such as off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, or planchet flaws exist, and these mistakes can transform a common nickel into a rare collectible, commanding much higher value in the numismatic marketplace. The grading of Jefferson Nickels, including the 1974 issue, is an area of study in itself. Professional grading companies evaluate strike, sharpness, luster surface, preservation, and overall eye appeal. The highest levels of mint state condition can drastically increase the desirability of a coin. For example, a 1974 nickel graded at MS66 or higher may be far scarcer than its huge mintage suggests, due to the difficulty of preserving coins free of contact marks and wear. When examining proof nickels of 1974, collectors pay close attention to cameo and deep cameo contrasts, where the frosted portrait and Monticello stand out sharply. Against the reflective mirror-like fields, the development of this proof quality was a hallmark of San Francisco production in the 1970s, and a deep cameo example from 1974 is highly sought after today. Beyond the numismatic factors, the 1974 nickel is a window into American life. At the time, it was the age of post-Vietnam society. The Watergate scandal was shaking. The political system, inflation was impacting the economy, and the American people were dealing with rapid cultural change. Yet through all this, the Jefferson Nickel remained a constant symbol of stability in everyday commerce. To put the 1974 nickel into perspective, within the larger series, it represents a continuation of the long-standing Schlag design, which would remain in place until 2004, when the Westward Journey Nickel series introduced new designs marking the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Thus, the 1974 issue falls within what many collectors call the classic era of Jefferson Nickels, an era defined by traditional imagery and widespread use. For the advanced collector varieties of 1974, Nickels can offer further intrigue. Die varieties, including repunched mint marks, doubled dies, and other small details are studied carefully by specialists. Some varieties may only be known to a few experts, but they highlight the complexity and craftsmanship involved in minting millions of coins every year. The Jefferson Nickel series has long been a favorite for beginning collectors because the coins are affordable, widely available, and historically rich. A complete date and mint mark collection of Jefferson Nickels provides a journey through American history from the late 1930s to the modern day, and the 1974 nickel holds its rightful place within. This narrative, while perhaps not rare in absolute numbers, it becomes significant as part of the long continuum of American coinage. As we reflect on the 1974 nickel, we realize that every coin has two stories. One is the technical story of its creation, the dies, the mints, the alloys, the mintages, the grades, and the varieties. The other is the human story of the time period, the hands it passed through, the economic backdrop, the historical events shaping the nation together. These stories make the Jefferson Nickel not just a 5-cent piece, but a living artifact of American life. So when you hold a 1974 Jefferson Nickel, remember that it is more than spare change. It is a link to Thomas Jefferson, to Felix Schlag, to the mints that produced it, and to the millions of Americans who used it in their daily lives. It is a coin that may seem ordinary, but carries with it extraordinary meaning in the world of numismatics and history, and that is the power of a simple nickel. Step back in time with me to the year 1947, when the world was recovering from the aftermath of the Second World War, a time of transition when America was shifting from wartime production to peacetime prosperity, and among the countless symbols of American resilience and stability was a small 5-cent coin. The Jefferson Nickel, and the 1947 issue of this coin carries a story far greater than its size. It represents continuity, change, and the enduring legacy of American coinage. The Jefferson Nickel series began in 1938 when it replaced the Buffalo nickel, and its design by sculptor Felix Schlag showcased Thomas Jefferson on the Obverse with Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. By 1947, the design was already well established in the pockets of everyday Americans, yet each year tells its own unique story, and the 1947 issue is no exception. To understand the 1947 Jefferson Nickel, we must first look at the climate of the United States at the time. Factories that once produced tanks, planes, and ammunition were now producing consumer goods, cars, refrigerators, and televisions. The war had left its mark, but Americans were eager to move forward, and coins were part of that movement in daily life. By 1947, the wartime alloy changes of the Jefferson Nickel had ended during World War II. From 1942 to 1945, the composition of the nickel had been altered to save nickel metal for the war effort, with silver, manganese, and copper being used instead. But beginning in 1946, the mint returned to the traditional composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This makes the 1947 nickel part of the first full post-war issues struck entirely in the original metal blend, again, a symbol of returning normalcy and stability. The minting of the 1947 Jefferson Nickel took place at 3 locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint, each producing millions of coins, yet with slight variations and different mint marks that today carry weight. In the eyes of collectors, the Philadelphia Mint produced the largest share, and like all Philadelphia coins of the time, it bore no mint mark. The Denver Mint coins featured a small D mint mark located on the reverse to the right of Monticello, and the San Francisco Mint struck its share with an S mint mark. Each of these varieties holds its own appeal to numismatists. When examining the design itself, the obverse portrait of Thomas Jefferson in profile still maintained the crisp sculptural lines envisioned by Schlag, although die wear and striking pressure at times led to weakness in detail. Especially in Jefferson's hair and cheekbone areas, the reverse with Monticello often suffered from weakness in the steps of the building, which would later give rise to the famous full steps designation among collectors. A coin with fully struck steps is considered far more desirable and valuable, and 1947 is no exception in that regard. Condition rarity is a central part of the story, with many coins from 1947 surviving in circulated grades, but relatively fewer in pristine mint state condition, free of bag marks, scratches, or dull luster in the realm of coin grading, where experts assess coins on a scale from 1 to 70, the finest. Examples of 1947 nickels command strong interest, especially when they display that coveted full steps detail. Collectors and historians also view the 1947 nickel as part of a transitional period in U.S. coinage. It is not tied to the wartime silver, nickels, nor is it yet part of any design change. It exists in that post-war calm, a coin that quietly circulated through the hands of Americans during the early days of the baby boom, the dawn of the Cold War, and the rise of post-war prosperity. If you were to hold a 1947 nickel, you would be touching a piece of a time when a gallon of gas was just a few cents, when a loaf of bread was inexpensive, and when families were beginning to dream of suburban homes with white picket fences. While the mintages of 1947 nickels were high enough to meet circulation demand, the coin in high grade is where true rarity lies. Philadelphia struck over 100 million coins. Denver and San Francisco each produced tens of millions, yet most of those coins endured years of use pocketware and banking circulation, which makes uncirculated survivors particularly appealing. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC have encapsulated and certified many of these nickels, giving modern collectors a way to assess authenticity and condition reliably. As with many Jefferson Nickels, the 1947 issue is also studied for its die varieties, repunched mint marks, doubled dies, and striking anomalies. Specialists in the series often devote entire catalogs to documenting these subtle variations, which add layers of complexity and intrigue to the hobby. For example, repunched mint marks from the Denver and San Francisco issues show the handcraftsmanship of placing mint marks into dies, a process that would later become mechanized, adding charm to the imperfections of the era. It is also worth considering the cultural resonance of Jefferson himself. By 1947, Jefferson represented not just a founding father, but also the embodiment of American ideals, of democracy, expansion, and intellectual curiosity. Placing his portrait on the 5-cent coin ensured his image circulated daily in millions of transactions from grocery stores to movie theaters, reinforcing his legacy for every American citizen. Monticello on the reverse further underscored his vision and his deep connection to Virginia heritage. For those building collections today, the 1947 nickel can be approached in several ways. One might seek a simple representative circulated example to tell the story of post-war coinage, or one might aim higher, assembling a full mint mark set in mint state condition with sharp details, or even focus on finding the elusive full steps examples that command premium values at auction records. Reveal that top-graded specimens with full steps can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their rarity and eye appeal, far above their humble face value of 5 cents. This long history and numismatic depth is what transforms The 1947 Jefferson nickel from a small everyday coin into a window of the past. It is not just copper and nickel alloy, it is a storyteller of post-war America, a witness to change, and a collector treasure waiting to be discovered. Imagine holding in your hand a simple 5-cent coin from 1998. A Jefferson nickel that at first glance looks like ordinary pocket change, but behind its familiar face lies a story of American history, artistry, economic change, and numismatic value. A story that connects Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the United States, to the mints of Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and to the millions of people who use these coins every day. This is not just a coin, it is a time capsule of 1998. A year of political events, technological growth, and cultural transformation, and when you understand its background, you will see that this Jefferson nickel is far more than just 5 cents. The 1998 Jefferson nickel continues a tradition that began in 1938 when the United States Mint introduced the Jefferson design created by sculptor Felix Schlag to replace the Buffalo nickel after a national competition. Schlag's winning design placed a left-facing portrait of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse side, with the Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse, and it remained largely unchanged for decades, with only minor adjustments made to improve clarity and strike quality. By 1998, the design had already been in circulation for 60 years, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. And each piece struck that year carried not only the familiar imagery, but also the weight of tradition. 1998. Jefferson Nickels were minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities for circulation. While the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions for collectors, the Philadelphia Mint coins carried no mint mark. As was the custom at the time, the Denver Mint coins bore the D mark, and the San Francisco proofs carried the S Mint mark. These distinctions are crucial for collectors because they help identify not only the place of production, but also the relative rarity of each type. In that year, billions of nickels were produced for circulation, meaning the 1998 Jefferson nickel is not considered scarce in terms of mintage. However, the quality and condition of the coin play an enormous role in determining its value. Today, the Obverse portrait of Jefferson in 1998 still showed Schlag's design, though by this point, critics had long debated whether the image truly captured Jefferson's likeness. Some considered the design too stylized, while others praised its classic look. But regardless of artistic debates, the portrait became one of the most recognizable American coin images of the 20th century. Jefferson faces left with the motto, "In God We Trust," along the left rim, and the word liberty written in his own script style to the right, along with the year 1998, and the mint mark when present. The reverse displays Monticello Jefferson's plantation home with its neoclassical dome, and pillars beneath it appear the words, "Monticello 5 cents, United States of America," and above it, the national motto, "E pluribus." On them in terms of mintages, the 1998 Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion Jefferson Nickels, while the Denver Mint also produced close to 1 billion. The San Francisco Mint struck several million proof nickels for collectors. These proof coins were made with sharp detail, polished dies, and special planchets, giving them a mirror-like appearance that sets them apart from ordinary circulation strikes. These proofs came in both clad and silver versions when issued in proof sets by the mint collectors, and numismatists often seek out high-grade examples of the 1998 Jefferson nickel coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC in Mint State 65, or higher can command a premium, especially those with strong strikes, attractive luster, and minimal contact marks. Full steps designations are particularly prized. This refers to the detail on the steps of Monticello on the reverse. When these steps are fully struck and show no interruptions, the coin becomes far more desirable since many nickels, even from fresh minting years, failed to achieve a fully detailed strike. Thus, full steps nickels from 1998 are not rare in absolute terms, but in gem condition with strong steps, they can fetch significantly more than face value the year. 1998 itself was significant. In the larger historical context, the United States was experiencing a booming economy driven by technology and the dot-com era. The Jefferson nickel in circulation reflected the everyday commerce of that time being used. In vending machines, parking meters, and countless transactions across the nation, it was a coin of ordinary people. Yet, in the hands of collectors, it became a window into both monetary history and the artistry of American coinage. The long-standing design of the Jefferson nickel would only remain for a few more years. After 1998 and 2004, and 2005, the Mint introduced the Westward Journey nickel series to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and by 2006, a new forward-facing portrait of Jefferson designed by Jamie Franke replaced Schlag's classic profile. Thus, the 1998 nickel represents one of the final years of the original uninterrupted design, making it historically important as part of the closing chapter. Of a 6-decade tradition, errors and varieties also add intrigue to the 1998 Jefferson nickel. While most coins struck that year were ordinary, some exhibit die cracks off center strikes, double die, obverses or reverses, and other striking anomalies, which are carefully studied by specialists. Such coins can transform a 5-cent piece into a collectible worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on rarity and condition. For 2 hours, one can explore not just the technical aspects of the 1998 Jefferson nickel, but also the cultural, artistic, and economic dimensions surrounding it, the sculptural decisions of Felix Schlag, the evolution of U.S. mint practices, the impact of circulation wear and collecting trends, the significance of proof coins and mint marks, the rarity of full steps designations, and the broader economic climate of 1998 all combine to paint a full picture of why this nickel is more than just a small coin in your pocket. It is a symbol of American heritage, a link between past and present, and a collectible that tells a story worth listening to in detail.